Hey, good morning, guys. We got a little bit of a late start this morning, had a little bit of technical difficulties, but we are here live with you. We were broadcasting from YouTube live, and then later on, this broadcast will be available on our Roku channel under Let the Truth Be Told Network, and just look for Unfiltered Vision News. So, in today's news, we're actually gonna, you know, have some topics this morning. This is Tell It All Tuesday. And so, look through some news stories yesterday. And there's one story in particular that stood out to me. It may not have stood out to a lot of individuals, but there's a bill that has actually been presented in the House, and it is H.R. 867. It is a bill proposed as in it's supposed to amend the Anti-Boycott Act of 2018 to apply the provisions of that act to international governmental organizations. And I found that very interesting, because we always talk about the NGOs, which are the non-governmental organization. Right now, we're dealing with international governmental organizations. And so this bill has been introduced. It has not been passed. It was actually co-sponsored by 24 different members of the House. And it's pretty much a bipartisan effort. So in the list, there's 24 reps, as I stated, but the Republicans and the Democrats. So there are some that agree with this. Now, one in particular that doesn't, from my state, the state of Georgia, is Marjorie Taylor Greene. She is not going along with this bill. She sees things differently. I'm hoping to get her on Let the Truth Be Told Network so she can give us her perspective on this bill and also her feedback on just where things stand currently in the House of Representatives. And so with that, let's get into it with Tell It All Tuesday.
All over the world, not just the United States, the organized left is the globalist power party. They are the establishment. And they are for total and complete criminalization of free speech. This H.R. 867, that is the wet dream of the left on every other issue, to throw people that disagree with something they're doing in prison. This bill gets introduced last week by some of these neocon Republicans that would put you in jail for 20 years if you criticize Israel. H.R. 867. And it didn't have a bunch of co-sponsors, but still the idea that some of these warmongering Republicans, Christian Zionists, would introduce something like this, and that this is being pushed, is disgusting. Now, I've read the bill. You can go pull it up yourself, H.R. 867. And Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene came out big against it Friday and over the weekend. It's now been pulled. She says, I'll be voting no. It's my job to defend Americans' rights to buy or boycott whomever they choose without the government harshly fining them or imprisoning them. Prison sentences up to 20 years, fines up to $1 million. The House bill was going to be the vote today on H.R. 867 that got introduced in January. The IGO Anti-Boycott Act, sponsored by Representative Mike Lawler. Totally un-American, bonker level insane.
Okay, so I hope people were not triggered by Alex Jones, but I just wanted to put it out there, his perspective on the bill. And then I wanted to actually pull up the bill and read through it. And it's not very long, but what this bill actually does is it amends an anti-boycott of 2018. So it's not necessarily a bill within itself. It's looking to amend something else. But by doing that amendment, it is bringing in some pretty heavy provisions. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And you guys know it takes a second for me to do some of this stuff because I am my own best friend right now. As we're doing this together. But here's the bill, right? And it's HR 867, and it's to amend the Anti-Boycott Act of 2018 to apply the provisions that act to international governmental organizations. And here is the list of individuals. Let's see. Be it enacted by the House of Representatives. And it's literally just this page. That's it. Okay. So it amends as follows in this section 50 U.S. Code 4841 by inserting international governmental organizations after foreign country. So that means we're going to be referring to the IGO after a foreign country. And in subsection, in the matter of preceding subparagraph by inserting IGO, by inserting. So as you can see, again, this bill is to amend another bill, right? So I wanted to take a look at this 50 U.S. code for one because I was like, okay, what is this code about? And we're looking at this all together. So listen, we are going through it, fumbling and bumbling. Let's see, Congress declares, I'm just looking at my screen. Boycott, sponsor, and impose foreign country against other countries friendly to the United States or persons, to encourage or require United States persons engaged in the export of goods or technology. And so a lot of this doesn't look as detrimental, right? But here's the thing about a lot of these bills, and especially when they go into amending them, from their perspective, okay, we're just kind of looking for tweaks and changes, but sometimes those tweaks and changes can literally alter how we function within the country. And so that's why I wanted to bring this up for you guys, just to look through it and see, like, okay, so what are we really looking at? And, in all fairness, I'm like, we're amending an anti-boycott bill. Interesting. It's very interesting to me that, because when you're boycotting something, the purpose of boycotting, right or wrong, I'll use Jamal Bryant as an example. He wants to boycott Target, right? Because they don't want to comply with DEI. He wants them to. And so he's saying, don't shop there. Could Target come back and say, hey, Congress, we need you to put in place an anti-boycott bill, right? Or amend a boycott bill so our business doesn't suffer if those in the public want us to do things one way or another. That's how I look at this. And like I said, I'm just using it as an example because everybody can understand, when you're boycotting something, you're saying, okay, I don't want to buy there. I don't want to do my business there. And collectively as a group, we're not going to do it until this other person's, company, whatever, complies with our demands, right? It's a way to pretty much move that needle to get your demands made. But now we're looking at our Congress really amended an anti-boycott bill for international governmental organizations, an IGO. So just understand maybe in the upcoming weeks or months, you're going to hear that term IGO and just know that that refers to international governmental organizations, right? So let's say implementing policies for one, the president shall regulations prohibiting any United States person with respect to that person's activity in the interstate or foreign commerce of the United States from taking or knowingly agreeing to take any of the following actions with intent to comply with further or support any boycott fostered or imposed by any foreign country against a country which is friendly to the United States and which is not itself the object of any form of boycott pursuant to the United States regulation. Okay, so that was a mouthful right there, right? Well, so if I go along with the boycott, knowingly or unknowingly, I can be kind of punished according to what this says. Maybe I'm reading it wrong. If I'm reading it wrong, tell me. If I go along with boycotting a country that is friends with the United States. And I think this is where, with Alex Jones and his feedback, where he was stating this could be an issue of Israel, right? Putting forth this anti-boycott situation, or actually, encouraging our Congress to do so. Like I said, I find this one's really, really interesting. Just how it's been outlined, what it's saying. Let's go on to this section. I'm trying to find the penalties. Honestly, that's what I'm trying to find. But I don't see them here. Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna have to look back through, because I did a little bit of researching last night, and I was like, with all of my research, I'm like, oh, okay. Not that I find it exhausting, but yeah, it's a little bit exhausting. But this is what I was able to find, and I'll definitely leave you guys the link, and also the link to the penalties that Mr. Jones was referring to, because that is extremely concerning, right? We don't want to be in the business of, punishing people for boycotting, because people boycott for different reasons. Either they want their demands met, or they are sometimes, in essence, trying to cause harm to a company because they feel that this company isn't doing what's in their best interest, right? Boycotting, I don't want to say it's a form of freedom of speech, but it could kind of almost fall under that. But it depends on the intent, right? And the fervor in which you go forward. Again, I'll use the example of Jamal Bryant. They are, they have a boycott against Target. And in said boycott, and in doing so, they really, I want to say, put a hurting on Target, but they kind of did. I don't know what else to say. Target lost $12 billion, and apparently their stocks fell to under $100. So the boycott was effective, and it got Target's attention, and now they're working with Jamal Bryant and also, oh my goodness, the Reverend Al Sharpton. So they're working with those two individuals to, put DEI back in place. I don't agree with DEI personally, but what I'm saying is their boycott was effective in that way. Now, the federal government did not step in and say, okay, you cannot boycott this company. You don't have the right to go after them, directly, okay, and tell people don't shop there, or make your demands where they have to do this or they have to do that. They did it. They're in talks and conversation with Target as we speak. So I find it very fascinating that there is an anti-boycott act, right? Which means we're trying to get people not to do something. And this was done in 2018. So this wasn't done, 10 years ago. This was done, roughly 7 years ago. So under a decade, I hadn't heard of such a bill. And, the bill was introduced in response to concerns that some IGOs pressure companies and individuals to boycott certain nations and companies, especially those with ties to U.S. allies like Israel. By expanding the scope of the original law, H.R. 867 aims to protect U.S. businesses and individuals from being coerced into participating in such boycotts. Right? So, like I said, I keep using the Jamal Bryant, Al Sharpton example. And so, what this is saying is, okay, you as a business or individual, you can't do it on an international level. You can do it, I'm just saying, Target, it's Target. But yet, we can boycott Target. We can boycott, let me see what other, Walmart. We could boycott, Starbucks. I'm just throwing it out there. We could. And the government would see that as a freedom of speech. We wouldn't be punished if we decided collectively as a group to say, we're not going to shop here. We're not going to buy here. We might pick a certain day. We might pick a certain month. We might say, okay, we're just going to stop shopping there altogether until they meet our demands, whatever those demands are, right? That's why people are using boycotts. But like I said, I find it fascinating that we are, well, not we, but our House of Representatives, they're looking to put forth an amendment to an anti-boycott bill that we already have, right? We already have in place. And so this bill, who will it protect? It says U.S. companies. It shields them from conflicting obligations that could arise from foreign pressure to boycott. So this isn't domestic pressure. This is foreign. So what Al Sharpton and Jamal Bryant are doing, that's domestic, right? If it came to another country, we could use China, for example, or we could use Israel, for example. If, let's say Ukraine, we'll use Ukraine, for example, because we've given them so much money. Okay, Ukraine says, okay, we want to boycott Israel, the United States. We need you in with us to boycott them. It's saying U.S. companies, it shields them from conflicting obligations that could arise from foreign pressure to boycott. So if there's a company within the United States, they're shielding from that obligation. So if they say no, they're not going to get any retaliation. U.S. citizens and residents, it prevents individuals from facing legal or financial penalties for refusing to comply with unlawful boycott demands. Okay, that sounds okay so far. U.S. foreign policy reinforces national interest by discouraging participation in boycotts not approved by the U.S. government. So people still participate in boycotts, but this is putting some constraints around it at the international level. But see, here's where it gets interesting, because there's penalties for violations. Under the existing anti-boycott of 2018, which HR 867 would expand, the following penalties, apply. For civil penalties, up to $300,000 per violation, or twice the value of the related transaction satisfaction, whichever is greater, and hit you in the pocket, right? Criminal penalties for willful violations. For individuals, it's up to $1 million in fines and or 20 years in prison. So you could be fined and be in prison, or be in prison. So they can get you both. Take your money and take you to jail. For corporations, it can be up to $1 million per violation. So if you've got 3 violations, that would be $3 million. It's fascinating. It's truly fascinating what they're doing. And as of now, the bill is under committee review. The House has not yet further in the advance, has not yet advanced further in the legislative process. So right now, this amendment is being introduced. So it'll work through before it even goes to the Senate, or it might, fall flat. But people are pressing for this. And like I said, I find it fascinating because, we can go after U.S. companies, which we're doing right now. This bill does not protect them. This is more so on an international level where they're engaging internationally because it's talking about the U.S. getting involved. And so I want to hear back from you guys. Do you think this is overreach? Do you think this is something that we should not be a part of? I'm thinking so. It just seems really, really fascinating to me that we're doing something like this and that this is what our Congress is spending their time on. And with that, we're going to take a short break and I'll see you on the other side.
At All Sides, we give bias ratings for hundreds of media outlets. By freeing people from filter bubbles and providing different perspectives, we can all be better equipped to understand the world and each other. So how do we do it?
And we're back. Hey guys. So I hope you guys will definitely check out All Sides. They seem to be definitely really great. I know there is also another one out there called Grind News, which they do something similar. One thing I do like about All Sides is it breaks down more than just the stories. It will share with you if it's commentary, the opinion, and it really gets, if you're one of those individuals who want to kind of get into the weeds of where things are coming from, it gets into it, and it really gives you a really good perspective on what is out there and who's showing you the news, how they're showing you the news, if it's right, left, or center, and giving you, I should say that bird's eye view, right? Of you're hearing this or you're reading it, right? But where is the information really coming from, the swing and the sway of it? Is it coming from the perspective of the right? Is it coming from the perspective of the left? Is it centered, right? Sometimes you don't really know with your news unless you've been someone who's been a news consumer. You can kind of see the difference from the outset. A lot of times we honestly think that people are going to tell us the truth. And like I said, we went over that yesterday with the Smith Month Act. So I hope I was able to assist you guys in that to be better news consumers, right? As we talked about yesterday. And that you're not just listening to listen. So we do have some top stories that I wanted to go over. The first one is the Trump administration. They're offering $1,000 to immigrants who self-deport. What do you guys think about that? I think that's a good thing. I do want people to self-deport only because if they don't, it's going to be a lot harder for them to come back into the country if they're caught, because they did come over here illegally. And I know a lot of people say, well, some were asylum seekers, some were refugees. Well, they were told to say those things because quite honest, if they truly were seeking asylum, if they truly were refugees, they wouldn't have ended up here in the United States. They would have ended in the next nearest country available to them. And they didn't do that. So on its face, they lied, unfortunately. They were also under different designations called paroled into the United States. Now, if someone hasn't committed a crime, there's no need for parole. But we have a whole swath of people under this designation called paroled in the United States. And we'll go over that maybe sometime this week. So you guys can see that was unfortunately done by the Biden administration. And those are things that we don't want. We want people to come here the right way, because if they come here the right way, they will have protection. They will not suffer as they are suffering now. Some people are involved in the sex trafficking. Some people are, unfortunately being held captive as slaves, right? And working and indentured servants. And those are humanitarian crises that were put upon us by our last administration. Now, I know a lot of people, they don't want to talk about the last administration, but unfortunately, they did this. They made promises to people that were not real promises. And they had them put their lives and their children's lives at risk. And now we're finding out horrible things, again, that we will get into later on this week. But let's get back to the Trump administration actually offering immigrants who self-deport, $1,000. So the Trump administration announced a controversial policy offering $1,000 plus travel costs to undocumented immigrants who voluntarily leave the U.S. via the CBP Home app. The move is part of a broader effort to accelerate mass deportations and has sparked significant debate over immigration enforcement and human rights. Now, that's a brief analysis by AP News. And AP News, I know sometimes it can tend to be left, as some would say, but, there are some things that are just fair, right? Now, I'm going to check out all sides. They have the Washington Examiner, who is right-leaning, and they're covering it as this: U.S. paying illegal immigrants to travel home. The Trump administration is now incentivizing illegal immigrants to leave the country by offering a 4-figure government subsidy to cover any travel costs of leaving the United States. Illegal immigrants who choose to use the government phone app CBP Home to self-deport to their home country are now eligible for a $1,000 payment once they are confirmed to have made it back home. So they're not just going to get the money. They have to leave. Now, it'll be paid for. Their expenses to travel will be paid for, so they won't get any physical money in their hands as they're traveling. They're actually going to get the $1,000. So if someone came here from Guatemala, let's just say, once they get back to Guatemala and it's confirmed that they're there, then they'll get the $1,000. And I know a lot of people say, well, how in the world can they track this? Well, there's the app, and that's the CBP Home app. And our director of Homeland Security, she had stated ever since she's been confirmed that there is an app where people can self-deport. So this isn't something that's really new, but I think it's something where they are actually advertising it now, and they packaged it, and now there's a pathway for it. Because initially, when Christy Holmes started telling individuals and sharing about it, there wasn't a whole package around it like there is now, right? You'll get the $1,000 when you get back, and because basically it's a tracking app, it will be able to ping and pinpoint people who do leave our country. right? So they can't just pretend to be like, oh yeah, I got on the plane, but they're still in Minnesota. No, it will ping and let our government know or DHS know that you've actually left the country, that you've actually signed documents that you are going to leave here. Now, because these people are self-reporting, and this is just my tangent, they will now possibly be eligible to return to the United States, but they'll have a path to do it in. So now there's a pathway. Now, I know there could be the other argument stating that, well, when they got here, right, that now they have a court date. And most of the times that's what happens. People, they come over here illegally, they get a court date, and then they never show up in court for that date. So what is the judge supposed to do? Chase them down? No. Technically, they should be automatically deported when they don't show up for the court date. But here's the problem. That court date is like 5-6 years long. Huh? Why would somebody be allowed to live here so long and then be possibly subject to deportation when they've already committed a crime? So, in my opinion, these people they're already felons. And, that's harsh to say it that way, but they are. They're felons. They're criminals. They came over here illegally. You broke the law. So coming to the United States, breaking the law, saying, well, I want to have a better life, but I'm going to break the law to do it, shows you have no respect for the country. Shows you shouldn't even be here as trying to be a citizen of the United States. Why should you even be allowed to get citizenship? Now, people need to understand that citizenship isn't a right, it is a privilege. And it is. It is a privilege to be a United States citizen. I don't care. You might not like the way I'm framing it or the way I'm putting it, but those are facts, and that's honest. You have to follow the law of the land. And if you're not, that's letting us know as a country that you do not respect America and you shouldn't be here. And these are the things that people need to take in and understand. Why would you let somebody in your house that's not going to respect your rules? If you demand that people respect the rules of your home, then you should definitely demand that people are going to respect the United States in its smallest way. Like I said, we have laws, we have rules, and those things should be respected. Let me see. We're up for a break. Yep. So with that, we're going to take a brief break, and then we will be back. And we are back, and we're going to talk a little bit about one of our sponsors, that Cash to Crypto Society. As stated yesterday, I had a great time at their masterclass that they had this past weekend in Atlanta, Georgia, at Atlantic Station. And they are an amazing community. So if you are someone who's interested in crypto space and you want to learn more about it, please check out cashtocryptosociety.com. That is cashtocryptosociety.com. And there, as I'm scrolling through, you can check out all of the upcoming events that they're going to have. I think the next event that they're looking to have is going to be in August of this year. But you're going to learn about crypto. You're going to learn about, in the academy, you'll learn different things like crypto security, understanding NFTs, wallets and exchanges, and also income opportunities like trading bots, how to hold, staking, mining, gaming, right? Tokenizing, and virtual real estate. And so these are things that, we talked about this in the master class, that crypto is inevitable. It is just something that people are going to have to get used to. It's a part of our lives now. Some people call it fake money because, you can't touch it, right? It's in the ether. It holds a space, but it holds a tangible electronic space. So again, check out cashtocryptosociety.com and get more informed on the crypto space. And so now let's go to our next wonderful story we have coming up. President Trump puts 100% tariff on foreign films. I know people are just like, this man, okay? We need to take a break. Everybody's like crashing out. They were waking up crashing out like, what? Are you giving me 100% tariff on films? Yeah, yeah. Look, he's doing this stuff. No, we. I need everybody to calm down. That's all I need. I need people to calm down because here's the deal. A lot of these um, films, you know, they are made outside of the United States, but they want the benefit of the United States dollar. You know. So people are getting breaks and they're getting discounts, but on the back end, the people in the United States aren't truly benefiting from it. And so a lot of these tariffs are put in place so we can benefit. This is what it is. Um, Now I know people don't like it, but we have to see, is this going to help us or is this going to hurt us? And AP News is reporting, in a surprising move, President Trump threatened to impose 100% tariff on all movies produced outside of the United States, citing national security concerns and foreign propaganda. The proposal has drawn criticism from the entertainment industry and raised questions about its feasibility and impact on global film distribution. Now, there are a couple of things in there that stood out to me because, again, we went over the Smith-Mundt Act yesterday, right? We did. We did because I wanted you guys to be informed. But here's the key. It says that these are for movies produced outside of the United States. And just as I said earlier, remember, it's outside of the United States. Not here, not the movies produced here, but the movies produced outside. And he was stating concerns of foreign propaganda because there's no control over what other countries can show us, right? And we can consume, films made overseas, but there's nothing from stopping them from putting propaganda in those films and us viewing it, vice versa, right? We can do the same thing as the United States. We can put propaganda in our films and send it over to someone else's country. Just saying. It is what it is. And I read that to you in the Smith-Mundt Act yesterday. So like I said, I started off my show with that because I wanted to make sure that we understood the theme, that we understood that this is how our news cycle works. Everything that you read is going to intersect with the Smith-Mundt Act. So that's why I want it in the forefront of your mind on what's going on. And then let's see, let's get a left leaning. And this is the Daily Kos, KOS. They're saying the Mad King puts 100% tariff on foreign films. So dramatic. Okay, the Mad King has demanded fealty, okay, from the world of foreign art. He wants to put 100% tariff on foreign films. What in the world made him think of this? The other problem is, how could it possibly work? How are you going to keep track of films streamed over the internet? Is it TV shows as well? Do you have to drop a coin into the slot of Dr. Who's TARDIS? Okay. So I was just reading the synopsis from that perspective. And they're saying, well, how is this supposed to work? Again, he's imposing it. It hasn't been distributed. That means he's talking about it. That means he's thinking about it. So far, far, most of the let's see. I'm trying to find one that's a little bit right leaning on all sides. It says Hollywood studio stock dip. Okay, now we're getting somewhere. That's what people money. Dip after Trump announces 100% tariffs on movies produced abroad. Again, this is not about movies produced here in the United States. This is only about movies produced overseas. As some of Hollywood's biggest entertainment companies saw their stock prices dip Monday, hours after the president floated a shocking 100% tariff on all movies produced outside the United States. In a late night post on Truth Social, Trump said he had authorized the Commerce Department of the U.S. Trade Representative to begin instituting the tariff, framing the measure as national security issue. Right. So that's where he's coming from. He's looking at this more as a national security issue than he is just, I just want to, put some tariffs on it because I want to. He's trying to really look out for the country's best interest. And some people might say, is he? Is he really? And that was from the New York Post that I just read to you. So, and that was actually right leaning. There are some reporters in the New York Post, not always left leaning. They can be right leaning as well. Okay, and on to our next story. We're looking at the stock market that's dipping amid oil price slump and weakening dollar. And this is from MarketWatch. U.S. stock futures, including the Dow Jones, S&P 500, NASDAQ, experienced declines in trading, coinciding with a sharp drop in oil prices and a weakening U.S. dollar. These developments signal broader market uncertainty and have investors closely monitoring economic indicators. That was mouthful. But, our dollar has been, I don't want to say under attack for a while, but it has. There's BRICS, that's the Brazil, Russian, African, Chinese, I forget, there was South America, but it's changed to BRIC because South Africa, I think, they kind of coincided. So, looking at this, how is that going to really affect us? It experienced a decline in early trading, coinciding with a sharp drop in oil prices. So it's interesting how the oil prices are dropping and our dollar is weakening. Would you think if the oil prices drop, that that's kind of good because, that means our gas prices will drop. But if our dollar is weaker, then we're really not going to see much relief at the pump, so to speak. So there's that. I know the news can be so horrible, but let's take a little bit of a break and then, check out again what All Sides News has to offer.
All Sides has created.
And we're back. So good to see you guys again. Thank you for hanging out with me on May 6th. And now we're going to look at Warren Buffett. He is stepping down after 60 years at Berkshire Hathaway. Warren Buffett, the 94-year-old oracle of Omaha, has announced his retirement from Berkshire Hathaway, naming Greg Abel as his successor. This marks the end of an era in global finance as Buffett's leadership significantly influenced investment strategies strategies worldwide. Yeah, so you say that name Warren Buffett, and it's almost like EF button, and people listen because he's been so successful in the financial world. And wow, 94 years old, now you decide to step down? Okay, that is a working man. I'm just saying. Like, you would think he would have stepped down, 60, 65, let him go see the world. And no, he's just working hard and being there and doing what he does best, in the world of finance. And that's brought to us by the Financial Times. Let's see if we can find one that's a little maybe left leaning. It says Warren Buffett announces Berkshire Hathaway exit with Steve Fudge right beside him. Okay, they would have to bring up chocolate. I think that's okay. He's 94. He's entitled. He's entitled to some chocolate. And that's from the San Francisco Chronicle. They do markets, banking, and finance. And from their perspective, it says Warren Buffett, one of the most wealthiest investors, announced Saturday that he would step down from his role as chairperson and CEO of Berkshire Hathaway by the end of the year. Among the businesses that Buffett will be stepping away from is South San Francisco-based See's Candies. At a shareholder meeting in Omaha, Nebraska, Buffett announced his plans for the box of these chocolate fudge. So, I find it fascinating. I mean, this man has worked till he's 94. Now, I have a 94-year-old grandmother, and she's amazing. I'm hoping to have her here with us on the show on Friday. But 94? You've been doing this? Like, my hat's off to you. My hat's off to you. Because that's, I want to be retired. I would not want to be 94 working. But then again, it's one of those things, if you enjoy what you do, you'll never work a day. And so that's probably what's going on, especially with them celebrating with these chocolates. So another news story that I would really like to cover is it's called Global May Day Protest. Target Trump and Musk. I don't know what it is. So it's okay to be upset, I guess. I just don't remember so many anti-protests about Biden. I mean, and I'm sure there were some. Maybe they just didn't get a lot of press. But I find it fascinating how triggered people get by Musk and Trump. It says on May 1st, so this was a few days ago, massive protests erupted worldwide, including in the US, France, Germany, and Japan. Demonstrators rallied against labor policies and the influence of figures like Donald Trump and Elon Musk, highlighting growing concerns over workers' rights and economic inequality. Now, I know a lot of people have been upset about Doge and how the team has really gone in and looked at waste, fraud, and abuse, and how some people have lost their jobs behind it. Because as before Doge really even started, there was an email sent out to the workers, stating if you don't respond, that's assumption that you don't want to work here. Or if you don't want to come back into the office, that's an assumption you don't want to work here. I think let's see, there was another one that recently happened. I have to think of it in a moment, but those are the two I can think of where, that's what it was, where tell us 5 things that you've done on your job. And if they didn't respond, they would be let go of. And so, we're looking at the federal government. They need to be responsible for what they do, how they do it, because it is our tax dollars that pay their salary. And I don't think people are aware, but there's over 2 million people that just work for the executive branch. And so when I'm talking about the executive branch, I'm talking about the branch of the presidency. That does not include the House of Representatives nor the Senate. That does not include the Supreme Court. Okay, it's just 2 million people reporting to the president. Now, they have lost over 200,000 positions, which is roughly about 1% of the 2 million. And I'm not going to belittle, people losing their jobs because they are human beings. And it's like, that's terrible that you're not working. But it doesn't mean that you can't get another position. It doesn't mean that there are other options out there available to you. I know some people were offered something like a buyout or some type of severance package if they didn't want to continue working for the federal government that they could accept. And they had so much time to do it. And some of those people decided to file lawsuits. And in some of those situations, they didn't get their jobs back and they lost the severance. So I'm really hoping that people do bounce back and that, yes, you may not like President Trump, you may not like Elon Musk, but what are you doing to make it better? What resources are you sharing with other individuals where they can get a job or start their own business? Or are you just upset to be upset? Because there comes a point in time where we cannot just, lay on our back like a 2-year-old and kick and scream and demand that things change without really being a part of that change and making sure that things are better because of our efforts. And of course, we know about, unfortunately, the Pope who passed away. And the papal conclave, they are set to elect the new Pope on the 7th, so that's tomorrow. This is going to be some interesting things going on. I myself, I'm not Catholic. My father is. I have possibly some other family members that are. I have my personal thoughts on the papacy and the Catholic religion, and I will reserve those for later. But looking at what's going to happen on tomorrow following Pope Francis' resignation. Okay, I'm looking at the resignation, but okay, the Vatican has scheduled a conclave to elect a new pope on May 7th. Cardinals worldwide have convened in Rome, engaging in discussions about the future of the Catholic Church and various international external challenges. I'm sorry about that because the Pope, unfortunately, he did pass away. He, I want to say he was almost 90, like 89, 90, and he had a few health issues. And so, there are those praying for him and his passing, and the Catholic Church right now, they are, looking to fill this position. There have also been, I want to say, not stories out there, but just some news stories that I've seen out there saying that this could be the last pope when this pope is chosen. And I think a lot of people's concerns about who's chosen next is, I guess, their views. There are some that nominees for this position that are very conservative, and there are some that are extremely liberal. So it's going to be interesting to see who is ends up in the seat, so to speak. Who ends up there next, right? Let's see, another story we have. Oh, wow. I don't know if anybody really wants to hear this, but okay, here it goes. There's a measles outbreak in Texas and New Mexico, infecting nearly 100 people. Now, I want to say maybe a month or two ago, right after RFK was not, I should have said his nomination was brought forth. He was confirmed as the Secretary of HHS. There was an outbreak, right, of measles, and it was less than 100 people at that time. And so people were really concerned and they were like freaking out, like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you have, a case of the measles. Well, I need people to come back. Kids still get the measles, even if they get the MMR. I have children, and my oldest, she didn't have the chickenpox shot. She actually was born before it was released, so she did get the chickenpox. My other two children, they did get the shot, but my youngest, she still got the chickenpox. So it does not protect you from actually getting the virus. You could still get it if you're exposed to other people with it. It just is supposed to give you a better chance of not dying. That's what we have to understand, that people all over the country get the measles. They don't have extreme numbers of people dying from the measles. So that's why I need people to calm down, because I know people are going to freak out and be like, oh my goodness, I can't believe it. Just like this story from the American Medical Association says health officials report nearly 1,000 measles cases in Texas and New Mexico, predominantly affecting children. The outbreaks have led to multiple hospitalizations and heightened alerts about vaccination rates and public health responses in the affected regions. Okay, stop that. I just told the kids get measles. Even, like I said, even if they get the MMR shot, which is measles, mumps, rubella, they can still get measles. And it tells you, even in the fact sheet, it tells you, even in the insert, it is not so much that you won't get it. It's just supposed to increase your chances of not dying from it, maybe not getting it at all, or getting it as severely ill as you could. We just don't hear about the cases all the time. But of course, we're living in a time now in our country where, I want to say, unfortunately, we have people. I don't want to call them overzealous. I'm not gonna sit here and do that. But we have people that panic from things that have been around for over a century. That, yes, some people have died from, but it didn't take out the entire population. I had chickenpox as a child. Luckily, I didn't have anything come back as an adult, but I do know some people that they would get chickenpox later on in life. I forget what it's called, but it's like a secondary chickenpox that can come back and affect you as an adult, and that does happen to a certain segment of the population. It's interesting how people are so paranoid about getting sick. It's okay to get sick. I mean, I get sick probably maybe once or twice a year. It lasts for a few days. It's not bad. But it exercises my immune system. It lets me know that my immune system is working, that I'm alive, that things are okay with me. And I just need people to get there, that it's okay. It really, truly is okay to, get sick. And with that, we'll take a short break. Hey everyone, thank you so much for hanging in there with me today. We're just gonna call this one a short one on today because I did get started a little bit late, a little bit later than I planned. But thank you so much for joining me today on Unfiltered Vision News. Definitely check us out tomorrow where we're going to have Wellness Wednesday. And we're going to have some women coming on, talking to us about their health journey and really sharing with us some inspirational perspectives. Like I told you, this news program is not going to be all about the doom and gloom and complaining and the whining. We are also going to, give people their flowers and country better, but also to make our lives better with social engagement. And I want to also definitely remind everybody that you see these things occurring, look up for your redemption is drawing near, and definitely check out the USA Redemption Party at usaredemptionparty.com. We are looking for candidates to be servants of the